I love Nicolas Cage. I think he's a fantastic actor who has been typecast because of a few bad performances. So what I'm going to do is watch and review every Nicolas Cage movie ever. It's gonna be tough, hopefully it'll be funny, but one thing's for sure, it's gonna be a cage match. Let's go.
Remember, these are the best of times.
The Best of Times was a failed sitcom pilot for ABC in 1981. Although it's categorized as a TV movie, it's really just 2 episodes stuck together. The opening scene of the show introduces us to our main character, Crispin, played by none other than Crispin Glover. This was his first role in addition to our man, Nicolas Cage. Although it is worth noting that at this point in his career, he was going by his birth name, Nicolas Coppola. He changed it soon after this so that he wouldn't get special treatment for being the nephew of the legendary Francis Ford Coppola. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Crispin Glover. I think Crispin Glover is a great actor, but I've always found him to be very creepy. I've always thought he works best in a horror film or at least in a scary role. I still enjoy the film Willard to this day because of Crispin's performance in it. And just look at him in the Charlie's Angels movies. This is not a performance that belongs in a family-friendly action comedy. He's also the reason I could never enjoy the Back to the Future films. Whenever I would see Biff Tannen making fun of George McFly, I'd always get nervous because I kept thinking he's just gonna snap and break his neck right there in front of his wife and child. There's something very creepy about Crispin Glover, and this show is no different. So we're introduced to Crispin in a scene where his mom's yelling at him off camera. We never see his mom, and I'm convinced that he murdered her and this whole thing is in his head like Psycho meets Jacob's Ladder. Anyway, Crispin starts introducing the rest of the cast by speaking directly to the camera. I've never been a big fan of when shows do this. At best it's distracting, and at worst it just feels like a cheap way of getting around to actually having to write a scene. How do we introduce this massive cast of characters? Well, let's just get this creepy sociopath to look directly into the camera and do it himself. And that's exactly what they did. So Crispin starts introducing the other characters, starting with his best friend Nick, played by Nicolas Cage. Now, this is where I paused the video and looked up the cast list, and sure enough, every named member of the cast has the same name as their character. Crispin Glover plays Crispin, Nicolas Cage plays Nick, Jill Sholin plays Jill, and so on and so on. This is true of every named character except for one. Mr. O'Reilly, who owns a 7-Eleven where the kids like to hang out, is played by Jackie Mason. Yes, Jackie Mason is in this too. So we have Crispin, who's the kind of lovable, relatable teenage goofball. Nick is the jock musclehead with a heart of gold. Kevin, who's obsessed with the ladies, and he's a nerd because he wears glasses. Seriously, if he just took off the glasses, he'd be really handsome. Or if we weren't in an 80s sitcom and everyone wasn't such a dickhole. Next up is Julie, who is the vain head cheerleader. There's David, who I thought was the same character as Kevin until I rewatched it to write this script. Then there's Lisa, who is the fat one. I just want to make it clear she's not fat. She's perfectly normal, but everyone else is a supermodel, so Lisa gets dumped on the entire show. There's Jill, who is Crispin's love interest, God help her. And there's Janet, who wants to be in a band. That's it. If you think I'm being too lenient with the character descriptions, I'm really not. There's just nothing to work with. I could tell the idea they had was they would have this large cast of characters, and every week we would spend some time with them and have some fun and maybe learn something along the way. And for a sitcom in the 80s, it sounds like the perfect recipe. The only problem is they haven't been picked up yet, so they had to make a 2-episode pilot in order to prove the idea had legs. And they failed spectacularly. I haven't talked about the plot at all, and that's because there really isn't one. There's a school dance coming up, and some of the show is about who's going to go with whom, and considering it's the only plot line that makes its way through both episodes, I suppose that's what the show is about, but it really feels like I'm reaching here. I don't think the show's about anything. Not in the good Seinfeld, it's a show about nothing way, but in the bad, oh god, we have so much time to fill, let's have a musical number about buying jeans kind of way.
heartbreaker, dream maker, love taker. Won't you mess around with me? You're a heartbreaker, dream maker, love taker. Won't you mess around with me? You're a heartbreaker, dream maker, love taker. Won't you mess around with me? Heartbreaker, dream maker, love taker. Won't you mess around with me?
We were just browsing.
Did I mention the musical numbers? Because there are musical numbers. The first one seems to occur by accident. Everyone's at the 7-Eleven trying to sell bottles because I guess that was a thing to do in the 80s, but Jackie Mason won't pay them because, you know, logic. So they start some kind of weird, peaceful musical protest. It's one of the only 2 songs in the show that isn't just a cover of an actual popular song. And it shows because it's terrible.
All right, we won't say another word, will we? No, not anymore.
Why don't you listen to a great jazz musician from my era, Leroy Anderson? What hits he had? The waltzing cat, the syncopated clock, the typewriter song. Not only could you dance with it, you could do light clerical work with it too. You see what you kids need? I'll tell you what you need. You need your parents' love. I'll never forget how my mother used to put her arms around my throat. She used to look into my eyes and say, "Boy, are you ugly."
Mr. Riley just put it on my tab.
Towards the end of the show, Nick gets a monologue. Unfortunately, this is probably the best scene in the show. He's rushing through his lines, he's got this dumb look on his face the whole time, not even to mention the fact that he's asking the viewer questions like it's an episode of Dora the Explorer. But aside from all of that, it's really the only serious moment in the show, for better or worse, and it gives some good backstory and characterization for Nick, who up to this point was just your dumb jock.
My dad's all for this military buildup. He says our country can't be too strong, and we gotta show the other side we won't be pushed around. That's fine. But being strong means taking chances. Like this here El Salvador thing. Do you think there's gonna be a war? I mean, like, I'm registered. They call it the draft. I'm in there, man. Dad says it's my patriotic duty. But shoot, I mean, you don't even get to choose a nice place. I mean, why do they have wars in Vietnam and Korea anyway? Why not someplace real neat, like the French Riviera or Bermuda? But you don't think there's gonna be a war, do you? I wish my dad wouldn't talk about it all the time. My mom looks at me and starts to cry. And Dad says the Army will make a man out of me. Look at that. Huh? I thought I was a man already. Dad was in the Korean War. He talks about boot camp and how he and his friends went off to Tokyo. Sounds like fun. But when I ask him, "Hey, Dad, what about combat?" He dummies right up. Gets this faraway look in his eye. Changes the subject. I'll tell you one thing. You date a girl and start talking about maybe going off to war, and she gets real cuddly and affectionate. So I guess it's got its good points. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about it. I got college next year if I can keep my grade level up. I never got good grades. It'll be a tough 4 years. I just hope we don't have a war. It kind of spoiled things, you know what I mean?
The show ends with everyone together at the school dance. Crispin got to dance with Jill, Julie ended up going with Kevin, or maybe David, there's really no way of knowing for sure. Nick brought a girl that he met on the beach in an earlier scene that was legitimately funny. Janet got to play in the band, and even Jackie Mason was there, screaming at children for some reason. We go back and forth between characters, and everyone gets their own little line of dialogue, kind of wrapping up things for their story arc, if you could even call it that. And after that, Crispin gets to go home, turns off the lights, and dances in his pajamas, in a scene that is nothing short of chilling. And to top it all off, we get that great theme song once more. Now it's time for the most important question. How was Nick Cage in all this? I think he was pretty good. I mean, he was bad. Everything about this was bad. But he was certainly the most enjoyable to watch, and other than a few jokes Jackie Mason made, he had the only scene that made me laugh when I was supposed to be laughing. So all in all, it's no wonder why The Best of Times never made it past the pilot. It is surprising that it led to so many successful careers, though. This was Nicolas Cage's first role. Crispin Glover's, too. And Jill Scholer's, who I was unfamiliar with before I saw this, but she went on to star in The Stepfather, Cutting Class, and many other horror classics. Speaking of horror, remember earlier when I said there were 2 original songs in the show? Well, I think I will leave you with the second one. It's a song about how stressful life can be as a teenager.
We've got to mow the grass, we don't think that we can last. After that, we're bagging groceries all day long.
Tomorrow, wash the car and the paper on the floor. If you think it can't get worse, then you are wrong.
Clean our room, pick up our clothes, and get out the garden hose. And there's still a list of things for us to do.
Take our means to the store, wait a second, there is more. On our way home, stop and shop for dinner, too.
Have to help Mom around the house, then I have to sew a blouse, and she wants the ironing all done today.
Tomorrow's babysitting for the neighbor's little monsters. Then Mom and Dad are going to see all day.
Polish all the silverware and don't forget the furniture. Sit and practice the piano, too. Or make some vegan Sunday dinner. Use every pot and pan. Guess who does the dishes when we're through? On the most beautiful day, we get to have a moment to ourselves. We get all the times we have our fun. Why does a Monday ever have to come? Weekend, hurry up and reach the park before it gets too dark to use the rides. Weekend, that's the time we live our dreams. During weekdays we can only fantasize. Weekends are the most beautiful days. We get to have a moment to ourselves. Weekends are the times we have our fun. Why does a Monday ever have to come?
Thank you so much for watching. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the YouTube channel TVTERRORLAND. It's the only place I could find this gem. If you want to see it for yourself, I'll put a link in the description below. Before you head on over there, though, why don't you subscribe to this channel and watch me slowly go mad watching Nicolas Cage, well, slowly go mad. Thanks again, and good night.